Good evening, beautiful woman. Welcome to Isaya's Inspiring Evenings, a podcast full of goddess series, witches' secrets, colors of women, and fairy seasons to integrate serenity, abundance, joy, and magic into your life. I am Isaya Bell, creatrix, magical pragmatic inspiration mentor, tech goddess teacher, and traveling priestess. And this podcast aims to accompany you for peaceful and inspiring evenings. Isaya's Inspiring Evenings has had various iterations and styles and is published irregularly. Subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice to be informed of the publication of each new episode. If you like this podcast, please support it by leaving stars, blue thumbs, and reviews on whatever platform you listen to me. In 2024, there are going to be 5 series in it, for now. All different, all aiming to inspire the audience, all telling stories, each complementing each other. One series, titled Women Lighting the Way, is about women's stories, centering around the past or future speakers from the various Women Lighting the Way summits, adding to the virtual library of women's stories and providing a much-needed counterpoint to the many men's stories going around in our world of patriarchy. This is one of those episodes, and I'm happy to invite you to listen to the story of Lisa Jara, recorded in 2022, entitled Embracing the Dark, My Journey from OCD to Personal Power. Enjoy!
Hi and welcome to the Summit Women Lighting the Way. And whether this is the first talk you're watching or listening to, or whether you've already been through a lot of these really beautiful stories of the powerful women of the summit, I welcome you and thank you for having registered for this talk, Embracing the Dark, My Journey from OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, to Personal Power. And yeah, it's a story of power, obviously, and of truth and the power of truth. Because I believe that our truth can set us free. And it's this truth that's deep inside of us, this essence of who we are, and that needs to shine out into the world. The world sorely needs every one of us to shine their own light into the world. And this truth is often found in some dark places. But before we dive into how that connects to my personal story, let's take a moment to check in with ourselves. So, if you like, take a hand on your heart, place a hand on your heart and one on your belly. You can also close your eyes if you like that. If it doesn't feel safe, you can also just soften your gaze. And then begin by taking a few deep breaths. And maybe you can even feel your belly moving while you breathe. And just start to notice what's present in you, in your body right now. If there are any physical sensations, whether there's some tension somewhere, or maybe there's a different temperature in different parts of your body. What emotions might be present for you right now? And also, what's your mental capacity right now? Are there a lot of thoughts running through your head? Or is your head rather relaxed and quieter? And if you notice that you start judging yourself, try to come back to simply what is present right now. Because all of it is welcome. All of it is the truth of who you are in this given moment. And then whenever you feel ready, take a last deep breath and maybe thank yourself for taking this time, taking this moment to check in with how you are. And then if you had your eyes closed, you can open them again. And yeah, again, welcome back. I like to do these little check-ins because we so often forget them. I mean, I myself included, doing that throughout the day, but it often reminds us to come back to ourselves, to come back to the present moment, to come back to what's alive in us right now. And we very often resist what's present. But by allowing whatever is to be there, what sometimes happens is that these, whatever it is, tension or intense emotions, when we start to just acknowledge them, see them, they flow through. And afterwards, you might feel more clear-headed. And we can use these check-ins to recenter ourselves and then to be able to decide, like make a decision about what next step we want to take, for example. It's even a nice break in between different tasks. And it's especially helpful when we're moving through challenging times, because then we can take better care of ourselves, like really honoring what's present in the moment. And while you cannot change that or cannot change the circumstances, you can always look at how can you be more compassionate with yourself? Can you do something for yourself that feels loving? So that's why I love doing the check-ins, and that's basically how I got through what I went through. I'm Lisa. I support women moving through life's challenges, basically the dark half of the cycle, be it the personal cycle, the menstrual cycle, or the moon cycle if you're post-menopause and you experience challenges in a certain phase, or mood swings, PMS, or painful bleeds, or whether you're going through a life crisis, or it doesn't have to be so dire, but just a situation where you feel, I would like some help transitioning through menopause, which is a challenging time for very many women, or even becoming a mother or being a mother in today's time. Yeah. And me being there as a guide through the dark half of the cycle is definitely rooted in my own story. Because I had or still have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and have had it for a long, long time. And if you don't know what obsessive compulsive disorder is, it is a mental condition where there is a very strong urge to do something. For example, cleaning. Like many people know that, like OCD, people with OCD may have are afraid of germs, so they clean a lot. For me, it's dust. And believe me, needing to clean from dust is a very like Sisyphus work, because like dust is everywhere. I mean, just our skin produces so many releases all the particles every day, and that turns to dust, and it's quite a task. And other people might have it when they feel forced to wash their hands for a certain amount of time, or count how many times they switch the lights on and off because they leave their house. And it's always this strong inner urge that you almost can't do anything about or against. You have to follow it. And it's very often rooted in power and control. So it's about control, feeling in control of something, because we often feel powerless. And the other part is the emotional landscape, is that we, by following these made up rules of how I have to, for example, how I have to clean my house and like my apartment in what order, it distracts me from feeling my emotions. So it's a way of suppressing emotions. That was definitely true for me, or has been true for me. And yeah, so in 2017, I was at a point with this condition where I had put so many rules in place of what I was allowed to do or not do, in which order certain things had to be done, how much sports I had to do, how much or how little I was allowed to eat, that I had really almost no wiggle room anymore in my life. And I won't go into like the gory childhood details now, because of course, through therapy and reflection, I know by now where a lot of this has come from, and that is, it is a trauma reaction. But these stories, they aren't important for what I want to tell you today. But through my whole childhood and teenage years, and also afterwards, I had so many ideas of what life should look like, how leading a good life, or the right kind of leading your life, the shoulds and so on, that I had formed so many rules that were often even conflicting. So by following one, I would break another, leaving me in a dilemma that I really felt powerless. And it was almost like I was maybe on a raft in the ocean, no land in sight anywhere, and the waves are clawing at the wood of the raft and are chipping the raft away, and the room I could stand on was getting smaller and smaller. Like, then you start standing just on one leg, and almost feels like you have to be in the air to continue being somewhere, to avoid falling into the sea. That was basically the feeling I had in that moment. And yeah, I've now turned that into like, it was just this morning when I started reflecting on this talk that I realized, yes, I mean, I still do have OCD, right? It is not just magically gone. And I've felt ashamed of that for a long time. And part of why I want to tell this story now is because it's a healing process for me to be seen in this truth that it's still part of my life. But I've realized that the OCD also reminds me of the power that I actually have. Like from right now. Back then I couldn't understand that. But now when I can feel it coming, this urge, I know, oh, where in my life do I feel powerless? And what can I do? Like even just a mindset shift or something. But what can I do to embrace that power again, to reclaim that power, to find the spaces where I do have leeway? And so at that point in 2017, I was in total despair. I didn't like, my life was so regulated every day from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed. Then I couldn't really sleep because of all the stuff that was unprocessed going on in my head. And then at one point there popped a thought into my head. And I asked myself, well, I was 30 at the time. Wow, I will have to live like this for at least another 40 years. Do I want to live that way? And the answer was a clear no, I didn't. That was not how I wanted my life to, what I wanted my life to look like. And so that was the moment of truth where I knew what I didn't want. And it took me a while to find what I wanted, but like it always starts with, okay, this is what I don't want. So I decided to go into a mental health clinic to learn to get back in touch with my emotions and release some of that pressure I was feeling all the time. And actually, this journey of reclaiming or embracing my personal power began way before the clinic when I made that decision, because I trusted myself and my own judgment. Apparently, like in hindsight, it's amazing that I did that. But I knew what kind of clinic I wanted. I was sure that I need a lot of one-on-one work, and I don't. Like, groups are okay, but if there is a clinic with only groups, it wouldn't serve me. So I knew I needed one with a lot of one-on-one work. And I found one that I absolutely wanted to go. And it was quite expensive. And that was the second part of the choice, is that I chose to invest in myself. Because I was like, can I really spend that money that I luckily had on a 3-month stay at a clinic? And I remember I'm extremely grateful for my father, who at that point said, well, how often do we go out for dinner and pay hundreds of euros or dollars, and like kind of it lands in the sewage system the next day? How about we take that money and invest it into ourselves and our mental health and in our own well-being? And wouldn't that give us a better return on investment? Like, we have far more from that because it stays with us for the rest of our lives. And I followed that advice, and I chose to go to that clinic and to invest in myself. And that moment when I was in that clinic, it revealed something to me, and it's so profound, because the moment that I arrived there, all the pressure was gone. Like, I didn't have to perform at work in order to get paid. I didn't have to try to hide parts of myself for fear of not being accepted. I didn't have to struggle every day. I mean, there were people cooking for me. And I don't particularly like to cook, so for me that was like heaven. I had a wonderful bedroom. I had time to myself, and I could just focus on myself and on my own healing journey. And I found, like, you would find me every day in the community rooms talking to other people, because it was just so damn interesting to find out their life stories and to just get this insight into their psyche and what brought them here. And I saw myself becoming this vibrant, exuberant, optimistic human being. I almost didn't recognize myself. And then I remembered, yes, that had been me at one point in my life. So that was my truth. Like, have you ever had this moment when things just fall into place? And it just feels so right. Like, how can something feel so right? That's what I had in that clinic. And yes, it was also hard. Like at the same time, I was going through some very intense and painful emotions. Um, all this unprocessed stuff of the years before. And even that, it was so affirming that I could hold myself through that. Yes, it was painful. Yes, I felt like my body was torn apart by grief and rage and everything. And I could make it to the other side on my own, yes, there were a lot of times there were therapists present when I had to go through these very intense phases. But they held space, right? It was still me doing the work, still me holding myself through. And that gave me so much trust in myself that I can hold myself through whatever is happened. And at the same time realizing that, like, I love being with these people. It was just, I love these deep conversations. And it was just an amazing time despite all the hardship that was present. And I had finally found where I wanted to go. Like I said before, I just knew what I didn't want anymore, but now I knew what I wanted in my life, and I wanted that in every area of my life. Did everything change after the clinic? Well, not immediately. And it's a process still, and that is like 5 years by now. And it's still a process. And I have learned to accept that it's okay, that it's a process that takes time, And I could finally accept who I am. I think that's the major thing I learned. I uncovered who I am also in the following years. And I could finally accept that. I understood my truth. I understood the power of my truth, because the truth is I am intense. I have intense emotions. I am one for deep conversations. Yes, I can do small talk and I sometimes enjoy it, but I love to have deep philosophical conversations about the state of the world at 3 a.m. in the morning. And also, I am Scorpio, so it totally fits, right? I love bringing light to the darkness, or bringing the shadows to light, so we can be aware of them, we can transmute them, we can do something about them. But I am like someone who enjoys dwelling in the dark, and for me, the dark was never something bad or unwanted. Like, I've always felt drawn to the dark. I sometimes joke that I might be a vampire or something. But I've always been drawn to the dark. I love being outside at night. I love the winter phase. I love taboo topics, all these deep, mysterious, or even like the things we don't talk about, menstruation, sexuality, and the power of sexuality. And also that menopause can be a struggle, but that menopause is a life transition that is just part of life. It's not something bad. And or even like how difficult motherhood can be. I want to bring these topics to life because it's important that we start talking about them and making them normal in our society. I also realized how much power my personal cycle held. Like, what power lies in our cycle, whether you cycle with the blood or you cycle with the moon. There is a time for each phase, and each phase has its own powers. And with every journey around the cycles, we we become more of ourselves, because during menstruation, during dark moon, that's where we are the most in tune, in touch with our essence, with who we are and what we want to bring to the world. And I believe we come close to that more and more throughout our life. So yes, it is a journey, and that it made me more relaxed about also my own healing process, that it's okay that I take the time that I need, and I'm always where I need to be. And so I uncovered that in that clinic, that I like to be a guide through the dark. Not because I know the way, I don't, but I like to be there in the unknown, in the mystery, because the mystery holds all this potential. And I love this, this excited feeling of, ooh, what could happen now? And so how did I actually make it through the following years? By, first of all, understanding and accepting who I am. All these things I've told you, that I am intense, that I am dark, like I love the dark. But also daring to follow and express that with people, and finding that they aren't all scared off or turned off by what I have to say, but there are people who actually want to hear what I have to say, or want to have these conversations. And also learning to trust my body and to trust this feeling of rightness. Like I said, we feel when something is right for us. There is this feeling of expansion, of excitement, of joy. And we also feel when something is not for us, when there is like this contraction, this feeling, then we know this might not be for us at this point in time. And what helped enormously, and that's why I did what I did in the beginning, to have these little check-ins. Because when we check in with ourselves during the day, we can always come back to this kind of neutral place, and deciding, the power of choice, the deciding, okay, and this is what I need to do now. And maybe it's making a cup of tea, or it's taking the afternoon off or something. But we don't know what's good for us if we don't take the time to listen. And like, I know that it can be hard sometimes to have these check-ins when you have a busy life, or two little kids around, or whatever your situation is. But nonetheless, being present with ourselves, even though all of this stuff is going on, like that really helped me. Like, even though there might be so many things going on, okay, what's my truth right now? What's present? What are the emotions? What are the thoughts? And stop resisting that. I had to learn that when I resist, it will just become more and more intense and more painful and take far longer to process. Whereas when it comes in the moment and it's an okay situation to do so, to process it right away. Like, for me, that looks like breaking into tears sometimes. But I know if I do that in that moment, it will take me maybe 3-5 minutes. Whereas if I suppress it again and again, and the next time I take time to process, it might mean I have to cry for an hour. And so just attuning to myself has been like a major game changer, and to allowing whatever is to be there in the moment, holding space for myself, basically. And I learned a lot of that through my coaching training, actually, because the basis is holding space. And like I described before in that clinic, I learned to hold myself through the intensity, through intense emotions. This holding space for myself, and the belief that I have power. I might not see it right now, but I do have power. I'm a resourceful being, and I can make choices. even though there are circumstances that I cannot change, within those, I do have the power to ask myself, and what would I like to happen? And that's just, it opens up possibilities, and it can make a shift in an instant. And always following this feeling of rightness that I had felt in the clinic. I want to be that vibrant, alive person with a zest for life and a zest for the darkness, that I knew myself to be, remembered to be in that clinic. And I believe we can all hear our truth. We can all feel it deep down inside our bones. We just most often don't take time to listen and to follow, which is made really hard by a lot of conditioning this society holds. The society doesn't teach us to live from our truth. It asks us to please hide parts of who we are. But as I shared in the beginning, I believe we all have this light, and we need to be allowed to express this fullness of ourselves in the world so that things can change. And no matter where you are on your journey, or what kind of circumstances you live in, you can start moving into the direction of your truth right now. Because when you check in like that and you weigh an option, for example, or a next step, you can feel in your body, I can breathe again. This feels expansive. Must be a good choice right now. Or you feel this, like, as I said, the contraction, and then it's probably not the best choice right now. And then you start moving into what feels good, what feels expansive in your body. And maybe you go 2-3 steps and you find, that's not it after all. And then you can make a decision to change. You can again ask, okay, and from this place, what does feel like a good option now? And you just follow these kind of breadcrumbs, and learn to follow your own truth more and more. And that's what I do in everyday life. As I said, I still have OCD, and it helps me to remember, oh wait, I'm falling into that old pattern again. Let me see where I can reclaim my power. So yeah, and by taking these moments to check in, you can attune to this truth inside. And you don't, when you're moving through something challenging, you don't even need to get like professional help or a coach or whatever. Sometimes all it takes, or like all that's needed, is to get together with a friend and hold space for each other. Just allow each other to be seen and heard in whatever is your truth at that moment. And that is so powerful. And that's something we very often don't do. Like, we try to change and fix or help the other person. And we can also just let ourselves and let the other be where they're at in that moment. And I believe that it's so important to get together with each other too, and not to seek validation, but to experience validation, because we reflect our own, like, we get our own light reflected back to us when we come together. And I have had mentors and teachers over the years, or therapists and healers, and I've needed them to reflect my own light back to me, so that I remember, oh yes, I am a powerful being. Oh yes, this is what I want. And then take action on that. And so it's also important to find the people that you trust to be able to hold you without the desire to change you in any way. In case you want change, of course, you can ask for support, but like, not have that pressed upon you. Because I believe that deep down you know it. You know what your truth is, and it needs to shine, because when you let your truth shine, you light the way for others. And then you become a person or a woman who lights the way for others too. Because as I shared, we all need to reflect our light back to each other. And together we rise and we can change something in this world. And it's your choice. Like, that's also something I have to remind myself all the time. Like, I have a choice here, the power of choice. I can I can choose to give my power away to other people, or he did that and now to situations that happened and now I'm all funky, to my inner critic when all these thoughts are running wild. I can choose to give that power, or I can choose to take it back and to decide and be like make clear decision, take a stand for what I believe in. And as I said, it's a process. It doesn't work all the time. That's completely okay. It's about the intention behind it. It's about being willing to look, okay, where am I giving my power away again? And where can I reclaim it? And just doing that over and over and over again. Yeah. And as you can see, this is a story about my story, but I also like to preach, and that's just another truth of mine. I like to preach and to remind you what a powerful, what a magnificent being you are, that you do know your answers in your bones, even though you might not always trust them. But I want to remind you of that you are a powerful being, and that your light is so needed in this world. And that very often the gemstones are found in the deep, dark caverns. And yeah, you have the power to uncover them and to become more of who you are, like letting all these layers be peeled away. So you become a truer version of yourself cycle by cycle. And that's also why I love working with the cycle so much, because like, every month we get the chance to see who we are and where we are not yet aligned with that truth. And we can uncover and release all these layers that aren't us. And by doing that, the world just becomes so much more beautiful. And I thank you again so much for witnessing me in this story about my OCD, which I think I spoke about for the first time so openly. And I wish you so much love and joy on your way. And remember, you have all the resources in you that are needed to move through the challenging times as well. Much love.
That's it for this episode. The next one is still in creation. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, share, subscribe, and leave stars, blue thumbs, and a review on whichever platform you listen to. If you want to be accompanied in the change processes that life offers you, if you want to live a goddess life daily and participate in the awakening of feminine energy in the world, know the secrets of witches, and apply the rituals of fairies in your daily life, contact me on my website isayabel.com. You can also subscribe to my newsletter to be informed of all the news in the real and virtual world of Isayabel. You will, of course, find this podcast on all platforms: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, etc., but also on YouTube and on my website, isayabel.com, on the podcast page